Nick Lowe. Nick Lowe. I haven't.
Caroline.
Yeah, Nick Lowe. Dr. John Bruni from Sage International and Focus, the podcast. Or is it
The Focus Podcast.
the podcast?
You had that all mangled up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Not enough coffee.
No, it's Friday. Friday. It's been a long week. Has it been a good week for you?
It's been a very productive week, but I'm starting to fade at the moment. And of course, it's school holidays, so I've got the double fade going on.
Oh, yes. It's 2 children, 2 fades.
2 kids,
Yes.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Narendra Modi. That was quite a thing last night.
He can draw a crowd.
He can pull a crowd, yeah.
Yeah, no, he did it the first time that he met with Albo, and he's topped it again. So, look, we have a huge Indian diaspora here, and I can understand why he'd be a very popular guy. The thing that we have to remember about Narendra Modi is he's not the cuddly teddy bear that we'd like to think he is. He runs a very tight ship back home in India. Some people say that he's a bit of a religious fundamentalist, namely that he takes Hinduism to a more extreme place than most. And look, as far as his strategic autonomy goes in terms of how he's positioned India, I would say that it is a very clever strategy. It's something that the Indians, irrespective of where on the political divide you come from, they really do like the idea of India saying no to the big powers or saying yes to some and no to others. It gives them a sense of leverage on the international stage. And because India is a nuclear power and it has a large armed force and it's standing right next door to its bitter enemy, Pakistan, on a hair-trigger alert, people tend to take notice when India moves in certain directions.
And they've both got the bomb, haven't they?
Oh yeah, they've both got the bomb. And the nightmare scenario with that, of course, is that if you think of a nuclear war taking place anywhere, the place that you don't want it to take place over is in India, Pakistan, because it sits right next to the equator, and the trade winds will blow the radiation globally. So, again, from our perspective, we tend to isolate ourselves. And when we think of India, we think of, we think of curry and all that kind of good stuff, maybe cricket. But we don't think of India being on a hair trigger to the annihilation of humanity over a smaller country like Pakistan, which has proved to be a bit of a bad actor internationally as well.
You wouldn't want to... I was trying to remember, Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her Sikh bodyguard, so you'd be careful if you were into religion to any extent to make sure you picked your bodyguard very carefully.
Well, yes, and the reason why that took place was that Indira Gandhi, let me see if I can dig back into my Indian history. Back in 1984, I think, there was a temple in Amritsar which was like a holy site for Sikhs, and they were claiming that they wanted independence from India, and of course
they still do, don't they?
Yeah. Oh my God,
you're public.
No, I have actually pulled the phone.
What have you done?
He'll be back, folks. He's just stepped out for a moment.
It's probably the Prime Minister seeking urgent advice.
Could be.
On foreign affairs.
Yeah.
Or Kylie Minogue.
From the missus.
Or Kylie Minogue.
Yeah. Oh.
G'day, Australia. You know what I think about Kylie Minogue?
No, I'll not go there, but yeah.
If we gave Kylie the choice, you've got... who do you want to shag? You've got Albo, you've got Chris Bowen... and Jim Chalmers. Now,
my God, one? Give her a choice at least.
Yeah, well, she's got a choice.
No,
that's no choice.
Jeremy, those are mental images I will never be able to expunge from my consciousness.
You can't unsee this.
Either way, she gets the back end of the stick.
Well, to sort of...
yeah, all three of them. I'm sorry.
Well...
It's the conversation's already gone into the gutter, and I haven't even had my first coffee yet. I mean, what's going on here?
No, well, I can get you a glass of wine, and that'll help you along nicely. It always helps me along.
So to speak. Yeah. Oh my God.
Anyway, we're selling India. We're selling India our uranium, and they're an atomic power.
Yeah, nuclear armed and nuclear civilian.
Yep. Now we're not allowed to use it.
Exactly.
But they are.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Well, we are, no, it makes perfect sense. We are a farm and we're a mine. So what we do is we take the good earth of Australia, sift it out and ship it off. We don't do anything with it because, of course, that would take political imagination, and that is something we don't have here in abundance. I think we've all come to that conclusion at some point.
Apparently, there are so many competing interests and vested interests. The government has to walk this very fine line. Well, Labor certainly has to walk this very fine line that it can't do this and it can't do that, and the Greens won't let them do this.
Yep.
I just find it amazing that when you look at the growth in India, and then you look at our growth, which is feeble and one of the worst in the world, and they're using our coal for cheap energy, and they're using our uranium.
I will give you a little. There's a darker image here that very few people, unless those people are from India or travel backwards and forwards between Australia and India, know, and that is that there is a price that India has paid for its fast track to development, and because a lot of it, I mean, arguably 70% of it is still coal-based. Yeah. The pollution, the excessive pollution in places like New Delhi. I mean, honestly, there have been 2 places on this planet that I've gone to, and I've had lung infections, serious lung infections. Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, I had, I think, on the 5 times that I've been there, 3 lung infections because the pollution level was so high. And
why did you keep going back?
Yes, the person that I had married hails from there. Okay. I mean, it's a lovely place, don't get me wrong, and the culture is fantastic. It's just that the atmosphere takes a lot of getting used to. Yeah. And in New Delhi, again, I mean, I saw so many wonderful things, and I thought, oh my God, the food is exceptional, everything is great, but I can't breathe the air. It was absolutely awful.
In China, maybe it's changed now, but we took a whole bunch of listeners when I was at 2GB, so it would have been about 1989, something like that. We took about 30 people to China. This was only a matter of weeks after the Tiananmen Square massacre. Yeah. And that was on the list of things to see, the square. And you could see the bullet holes, where the bullets hit the bricks, because it's made of bricks.
Yep.
But the thing that struck me was you never saw the sky. It was just
brown
or grey. No sunshine. It was just light. It was daytime. But people just got used to it, I suppose.
Well, I don't know how people can adapt to that kind of thing. I mean, I certainly couldn't. And it's just that it's so thick in the air.
And you're breathing it.
And you're breathing it in. And I remember, I mean, it was funny because the first couple of days that I was in New Delhi, it didn't affect me. I was okay. I thought, no big deal, dirty air, no problem. It was on the 4th day. And I remember I was at a conference, a defense conference, and we were at a real swanky 6-star hotel just outside of New Delhi. And I don't know, I was sitting down preparing my notes, and I noticed that there was a funky smell coming out of the air conditioning duct. And then I got up and I moved, and that funky smell just kept on coming through. So at that point, my body just said, I can't stand this air anymore. It doesn't matter whether it comes filtered through or not. Your body's had enough. And then on the way to the airport, it was almost like, oh, God, I can't wait to get to the airport, because they had huge air-conditioned filters in the airport that sucked that stuff out. So I thought I'd go into a purified environment. I go into the airport. Yes, the air was clean until I went to the gate. And then the air poured in from the glass. Oh, my Lord. It was awful. Yeah.
The truce seems to be over. Thank you for the tea. Bless you. The truce seems to be well and truly over, although you can't read what Trump is actually saying or meaning when he says, they're scum. I don't trust them, they're liars.
Are we talking about the Islamic Republic of Japan?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Iran. That truce. That
truce.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, look, Trump has a very interesting form of diplomacy going for him. I don't know if it's going to actually work out well for him, but, his apologists say that he's a very stable genius, and they're maintaining their very stable genius line to the rest of the world. And, of course, if you happen to even slightly criticize the great man publicly, you come under all sorts of pressure. from people who have swallowed the Kool-Aid and believe that Donald Trump is a very stable genius.
Well, if you keep telling people something, eventually they're going to believe you.
Well, he's operating by the Joseph Goebbels version
Yes.
of if you tell a lie often enough, people will start believing it. And of course, about 30-40% of Americans seem to believe it, and the lie continues. And Donald Trump is selling us something about, first the war is over, then we destroyed the armed forces, then the war is over, then the ceasefire is here, then the war is on again, then they're scum, we're going to exterminate their civilization, then we do. In anyone's case, when they're studying this, say 50 years from now, they will say this man had some problems because, keeping the world over a critical choke point where everything runs, our fertilizer industry, our plastics industry, our fuel, it's not an insignificant thing. And he's dicking around, pardon my French, but he's dicking around with all of this to the point where, people are starting to freak out just slightly because, we're going through all of our fuel reserves right now. We're not getting enough fertilizer to our farmers, so the crops next year are going to be much smaller than the crops this year. We're still living off last year's, so maybe, we'll be able to squeak by an extra 12 months. But beyond that, I have no idea if this thing just keeps on kicking on for the rest of the Trump administration.
But if you listen to his rhetoric, wouldn't it make a wonderful movie? Sort of I could see Peter Sellers or Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator. It's just so funny. And when does a war stop? Well, when does a tit for tat? Oh, well, you do that, we'll do this, we'll bomb that. You touch that, we'll bomb that. And he seems to think that that is a contained situation, and it's not really a war.
Well, okay, let's step back from there. It's true to say these are all negotiating positions, and the Americans are trying to get the upper hand over the Iranians, and the Iranians are trying to get the upper hand over the Americans. But the fact of the matter is, while they're playing these games, the oil and the fertilizer and the plastics are not flowing out of the Gulf. Yeah. So, if it were any other part of the world, say somewhere off the African coast or somewhere off Latin America, no one would give two worries about X, Y, and Z happening. But because it's coming out of the Gulf, it becomes an existential crisis for the world. And I'm not sure how anyone can justify what Trump is actually doing because, see, Trump wrote this book called The Art of the Deal. And The Art of the Deal is like a mafia handbook. It's all about intimidation. I'm going to intimidate you and you're going to, Jeremy, you're just going to fold. Fold like a pack of cards. You got no cards, and all that kind of stuff. And that is what the tenor of the book is all about. But what Trump tends to think of is that he is the most supremely powerful person in the world, and no one else has any agency, and no one is clever enough to work a way around the art of the deal. But if you read The Art of the Deal, and thank crikey I haven't, but if you read it, the argument is full of holes because, yes, it's talking about intimidating your opponents and frightening them into submission and all of that kind of thing. But it doesn't say what happens when your opponent is smarter than you and can intimidate you back. Because the only other option then is a proper war. Now, at the moment, yes, everyone's shooting at each other, but it's in order to try to get the upper hand in the negotiating process. It's not existential yet. Has the war ended? Well, no, because the blockades are still kind of semi in place, and a blockade by nature is an act of war. The shooting is still continuing, but not in a major sustained fashion. It's sort of on again and off again, depending on the mood of Donald Trump, or even the mood of the IRGC. Let's say they have a say in all of this, and if they see that they can muscle in on the action and try to trip Trump up, they will. How does this come to an end? Well, the problem with all of this is the diplomacy is effectively being run by the Americans and the Iranians, and it hasn't been successfully internationalized yet. You would think that the Gulf states would try through their back channels or even more overtly to, bring the Iranians and the Americans together. The Pakistanis have done their bit, but they're limited in what they can achieve because there are too few people trying to negotiate an end to this. This is a global struggle. It does demand a global diplomatic response to put the shackles on both Trump and the IRGC. But if left to their own devices, Trump and the IRGC do not trust each other. That is never a good sign for a lasting peace. You need to build a sense of trust and mutual cooperation. Now, if you had a bunch of other countries holding everyone's feet to the fire, that's a different kettle of fish, but we're not seeing that yet. There are too few countries involved. Most of them have their own interests at stake. The Pakistanis want to, grease the wheel back into Washington's good graces. So they're running their own agenda. They're not running a global agenda here. The Qataris, for instance, they've taken a huge existential hit on their LNG processes. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not, they're also entering the negotiating process with the United States with clean hands, or whether they're angling for something else as well. So there's always the subtext to the real event, the headline, right?
John Bruni is with us. Tony's here. Gary's here. You're here. Telephone number 0491 65 68 60.
Whether you're building your first, second or third home or a seasoned property developer, no one likes extra scary costs. Rossdale Homes get that, which is why they pride themselves on their absolute fixed price guarantee. They believe trust is a must, and with their guarantee and fixed price contracts, you'll get no nasty surprises. For peace of mind, trust Rossdale, where only you can change the price. rossdalehomes.com.au, trust is a must. BLD 8104.
Listen to the radio, indeed. Now, what did you hand me, Caroline? July the 10th celebrates Pina Colada Day. Okay, Pina Colada Day. And Don't Step on a Bee Day. Don't Step on a Bee Day. You don't mean a bee day that you find in a toilet. No. Don't Step on a Bee Day. Welcome to day 191 of 365. Yeah. There are 174 days remaining in 2026. Have you really? Do you want to press it, or will I? Yeah. That you like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain. It's your day, folks. And the feel of the ocean and the taste of champagne. If you like making love at midnight in the dunes on the Cape, you're the lady I've looked for. Come with me and sorry. Well, I don't know. Who's had a pina colada? I haven't. What's it taste like?
Many years ago, very sweet.
Sweet.
Pineapple taste.
Fruity sweet.
Pineapple.
But, the tin syrupy, not the fresh pineapple type.
It's very Southern Californian.
Yeah.
What's it made of?
Pineapples and...
Yeah.
all
that stuff.
Yeah.
All that island.
Don't fiddle with the knobs, Tony.
It won't stop.
All right, back to Iran. This whole thing was about not letting them have the bomb.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it?
No. That's what Trump tells you.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, if it was all about that, we would see boots on the ground going after the so-called nuclear dust. We've got to get that nuclear dust out of the country. Well, you're not going to get that with an uncooperative regime sitting in Tehran. You get that if you go in with boots on the ground. So this was about containing the threat that Iran posed to Israel. That's what the war was about. It was not about anything else. Don't believe the BS coming out of the White House. Because really, if it was all about the nuclear dust, that would have been a different war entirely. They're using that as an excuse because it's politically saleable. If you say that it's about the nuclear dust, then people say, oh, well, yeah, we can't have the Iranians have the bomb. Because, of course, as Donald Trump keeps on saying, they're going to use it, They're not going to ever use it. We did studies back, in the early noughties where, we were wondering whether the Iranian regime would be so unhinged as to pass on nuclear material to Hezbollah, right? Now, there were people in DC from the Beltway, 6-7-figure salary type people from Harvard and so on, making these papers and these with no evidence whatsoever, saying, "Oh no, the Iranian mullahs are so unhinged and so dangerous and so crazy they will actually hand over operational nuclear weapons, if they ever got them, to Hezbollah, which is a non-state actor."
Yeah.
And anyone with a bit of common sense would sit back and say, "Well, how would this actually work?"
They could make a dirty bomb, though, couldn't they?
Well, what, Iran or Hezbollah?
Hezbollah.
Well, they could make a dirty bomb. Anyone can make a dirty bomb, but the question is that they've had all this time to make the dirty bomb. Where is it? Where is it? I mean, you can raid a hospital, get some cesium, cobble together a missile with or a rocket with a warhead filled with cesium. That's your dirty bomb. I mean, it doesn't take a great scientist to work this kind of thing out. Yeah. But of course, that would be a weapon of terror. It's not a weapon of mass destruction, because when the rocket lands in northern Israel, it would only expose maybe a couple of villages to something, and that's terrible in and of itself. But it's not the same thing as World War III, because see, when we think of nuclear weapons, we always think of the worst possible outcome, which is World War III. We never think about the little things that can go wrong, the small things that can happen. But getting back to the idea of Iran passing on actual operational nuclear weapons, if they had ever created a nuclear weapon, that would be almost like if you had like a kid, a toddler bully on the playpen, and you said, son, I know that you're having some problems on the playpen. Here, have a sledgehammer and go your hardest. The little kid will smash everything to pieces, not just the threat that you think is the threat that needs to be attacked. So again, you never hand over sensitive nuclear operational material to a non-state actor that you can't fully trust. Because again, not many people get this, and of course the media doesn't say it. There is a significant difference between Hezbollah and Iran. Hezbollah are Arab and Shia.
Yes.
Iran are Persian and Shia. Now, that may mean nothing to anyone, because we just think, they're Shia, they're all the same. No, they're not. Culturally, the people from Hezbollah, in spite of their connections with Iran, are Lebanon first. They are ensconced in Beirut. They are a Lebanese political party, whether you like them or not. Their idea of the world is based on their position within southern Lebanon and their position vis-a-vis Israel. And whatever their connection with is to Iran, and whatever Iran's connection is back into Hezbollah, is completely opportunistic. It's really opportunistic, because if push ever came to shove, would a Persian society sacrifice themselves for the good of a non-state actor, a political party, I don't know, about 1,500 kilometres away from them, that are Arab?
Yeah, but they have been supplying them with all sorts of support, rockets.
Sure. But basically, when Hezbollah gets those rockets and those weapons, they march to their own beat. They're not being given spoon-fed commands. And here's a typical example of
but
where...
wouldn't the mullahs be saying, just as long here they are, you point them at Israel and fire them off?
Yeah. It's only because both the mullahs and Hezbollah have a similar enemy in Israel, but the enemies are seen differently from Tehran and from Beirut, or southern Beirut. They are not the same way. They don't see things exactly the same way. That's what makes this whole situation more complex. When you look at the screaming headline and you look at Donald Trump saying X, Y, and Z, they're trying to simplify a very complex picture. Invariably, everything that has been said publicly about the war up to now is wrong, and no one wants to admit to it, because everyone loves a screaming headline. A screaming headline filled with BS is what sells a newspaper. It is not the truth. The truth is far more complex, and we don't deal with complexity. We just don't.
Well, why bother about a nuclear weapon when you either have stumbled across a much more significant weapon, the Strait of Hormuz?
Exactly right.
If they didn't know before, they certainly know now.
But Jeremy, as I've said on the program before, when I was working in the Middle East, we were running scenarios. Because, back in 2006, when I was actually in Abu Dhabi, there were huge tensions between the Iranians and the Americans over Iran. You know that little country that the Americans went in and broke, right? So the Iranians rushed in because, of course, half of, or at least 70% of the Iranians are Arab but Shia, right? And of course, that religious similarity is what everyone takes notice of. They don't take notice of the differences. So they say, oh, well, the Iranians are coming in. And the Iranians were. They were delivering brown paper bags of money to various Shia mullahs inside Iran to tilt the balance of power against the Americans. So then we had, Then we had the problem was with the Iranians. What would they possibly do to protect their Iraqi assets if the Americans were to go hard, or if the Americans overstepped and were to go against the Iranians completely?
Yeah.
The only thing that we came up with was there's the Strait of Hormuz. They have enough military equipment. The IRGC alone could capture that area. Yeah. That was the truth back then. It was the truth back now. And just to put the point forward, we were very privileged in terms of being able to work with some of the Americans who were based in the UAE at the time. Yeah. And they knew exactly what we knew. They knew it even better than we knew because they were deploying forces in neighboring Iraq at that time, and they were worried that if things spiraled out of control, the Iranians would take Hormuz and hold the world at ransom. Yeah. Now, what happened between 2006 and 2026 that all of a sudden America just forgot all about that period of history? Oh, I don't know anything about that. Oh, no. The Iranians surprised us. Rubbish.
Well, threats and opportunities, you'd be looking at those all the time, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, you would. And the thing is that Donald Trump has now politicized the Pentagon. He's politicized everything around him, the judiciary, the whole lot, the whole box and dice. So in actual fact, whatever Trump wants, he gets, and that's it.
Dr. John Bruni's here. Can you stay a while?
A little bit.
Okay.
You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion with Jeremy Cordeaux, where the time is 10 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time.
Hey! What's the weather for the weekend gonna be? Will it be hot, cold, rain, snow?
And the weather today in Adelaide, it will be a partly cloudy day.
You may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you on. Brought to you on. Brought to you by RADI.
Dr. John Bruni from Sage International is going to stay for a little while, and Professor Plimer has just arrived. Let me tell you, whether you are building your first home or your second home or your third, or maybe you're onto your 10th, I don't know. You could be a property developer. I don't know. No one likes extra scary costs, however. That's a common denominator. Rossdale Homes, they give you a fixed price guarantee, which is a nice, warm, cosy feeling. When you build something, trust. Well, I suppose when you do anything, trust is a must. And that's the guarantee, the fixed price contract, meaning only you can change the price. rossdalehomes.com.au. Check it out. You'll find them very good to deal with. Speaking of houses, if you're going to buy a house or you're selling a house, you'll be very interested in this guy. His name is Neil Genman. Neil Genman has written this. This is not his first book, not his first rodeo. Questions that every seller must ask. I get the feeling, just browsing through this, that Neil does not like the real estate industry very much. I don't know. Maybe, perhaps there's some history back there somewhere. Neil Genman later. Isabel Taylor, that remarkable young lady. She's been a guest on this program before. She's going to drop by. And John Overton later on in the morning. And Professor Plimer right now. How are you, sir?
Very well. I did a podcast with Isabella earlier in the week, I think.
Oh, wonderful.
And I tell you what, it does give me hope for the future when
Me
you see
too.
bright young people like that
Yes.
who actually ask questions.
Yes.
And she's got a very good brain. It's wired the right way. It's wired to reject propaganda. So it gives me hope when I see young people like that.
Well, how can a young lady like that come through the system, the sausage machine? Because I think the whole thing is designed that all the kids in the class are supposed to be indoctrinated to the same extent in the same way, and then they'll all come out saying the same things and thinking the same things. But here is an independent kid, independent
She's probably
of mind.
genetically very lucky, having good parents and good grandparents
Yes.
who have actually pulled her up every time she says something and not allowed a nonsense to come out of her mouth. But she's a very impressive young lady.
John is fathering. Are they two girls or two?
No, one girl, one boy.
You find it easy, or is it a challenge?
It has its moments, but I love it. I mean, I suppose every parent will have their little hiccups ever so often, but the joys of having kids far outweigh anything that you go through.
But as the twig is bent, so shall grow the tree. That parenthood, it's a terribly onerous responsibility because you've got this malleable person that is going to come out wonderfully well or not.
I think that the secret, I mean, as we were talking about this young lady, I think the secret really is to ensure that the home life has stability and also a little bit of friction, creative friction. I always question my kids question me. And I think it's always great being able to sit around the kitchen table and have these debates. I came from a home that was full of those political arguments. My grandfather and I used to, literally fight quite loudly with each other over elements of history and so on and so forth. Yeah. Thankfully, I was mostly right. but I give my granddad props. He was pretty good too. But again, that little bit of creative friction between getting an idea and pulling it apart and putting it back together again always makes one, I suppose, think more flexibly.
Rupert Murdoch is fond of calling it creative tension. He applies it to his employees, probably more than his family. Now, Professor, is it true that Gina Reinhardt is going to give Elon Musk an island? Did you see that?
She suggested that he should purchase that island for his SpaceX. It's not an island she owns. I know she did look at buying one of the islands off Queensland.
Yeah,
one of these resorts that had failed.
Yeah, they're very cheap. I can't understand exactly why the resorts... Beautiful places.
Well, they're cheap, but then the money starts to flow out when you've got to build something, when you've got to get there.
Yeah. And then you've got the rules and the regulations that control everything you do.
Yes, and I think if she gives him an island, it'll be the gift that keeps taking.
What's that? What's the thing you give somebody and...
an Indian giver?
No, you're cursed for life if somebody gives you this... just saying, anyway. It doesn't matter. Andrew Taylor, I heard him on 3AW this morning before coming in and starting this program. He seems to have thrown down the gauntlet to Pauline Hanson.
I saw that on Sky, which is the only channel I watch, except if the footy's on.
Yeah.
I think he's probably burning a few bridges. There is a reality, and that is that One Nation will no longer be at 3%. Somewhere along the line, they're going to have an arrangement, be it with preferences, be it on policy.
Yes.
And for him to attack One Nation on policy is a little bit rich, because he's a chap who's very confused about Paris very confused about net zero and very confused about energy costs.
What's
And
to
they're
be
all
confused
interrelated.
about?
Well, they're all interrelated, but he wants to be half pregnant. So he's claiming that the policy comes from one person. That's not true. Certainly on things like climate policy, Senator Malcolm Roberts has a lot to say on it.
Yes.
So I think there has to be a situation whereby they remain friends but at arm's length. And I think he's burning that a little bit too much. Now, there's a lot of angst because there are a large number of Liberal Party members are not renewing their membership and going across to One Nation. The former New South Wales Senator, Senator Holly Hughes, she did that. She was a Liberal senator and she's moved across to One Nation. We've had Barnaby Joyce move across from the Nats. So it's a difficult situation, I think.
Yeah, there's no denying the move is on. It's a question of whether it can be sustained through to the next election.
Well, that's always the problem, isn't it? To keep it going. It's a long time between the next election. With any side, anything can happen.
Yes.
I think a litmus test will be Victoria, but they've got their own special problems, which some of them are similar to the federal problems, and that's bankruptcy. And here you've got Victoria, which has banned the exploration for gas, yet it's pressured the federal government to actually have a gas policy with a reservation policy with gas coming from Queensland, which could be exported, coming down to Victoria. Now, there are two things wrong with that. Victoria hasn't drilled for its own gas, and it should, and there's a lot of gas there, and I've seen wells flaring in Gippsland. I know the Otway Basin. You could run the Portland smelter off Victorian gas. And the second thing is the pipeline capacity doesn't allow gas to come from Queensland to Victoria. So they're in a mess. Sort it out. Don't put pressure on the Labor government to force a gas policy change, and this gas policy actually enriches large industry, especially in New South Wales, where these union-run industries can actually have the energy to keep going. Now, New South Wales has got a massive gas resource at Narrabri. It's been 17 years now that they've been trying to get that off the ground, and Santos keep getting belted around the head every time. So what the unions are doing is saying, we'll pinch Queensland gas, we'll make sure some of it's reserved, it will come into our factories where we've got a lot of union members, and these factories won't close because of a lack of energy. And this to me is, and if I'm not a Queenslander, but if I were a Queenslander, I would be more paranoid than the normal Queenslander.
It surprises me to hear that the systems aren't compatible. But it reminds me of the railways.
Compatible. No, they weren't compatible for a very good reason. Victoria had a very large amount of gas that came out of the Bass Strait field.
Yeah.
That gas actually kept industry going in Victoria. It was a manufacturing state. That gas is now on the way down, but they didn't need to have pipelines going to other states. And they actually insisted that people have gas-fired stoves in the kitchen and gas heating. Yeah. I know when I lived in Melbourne, I've been punished and lived there 4 times, I know that we had to have gas heating.
Yeah.
You couldn't have any other sort of heating. That's because there's an abundance of gas. Now, every petajoule of gas you use, you have to replace it. Victoria didn't do it. And they could have replaced it by drilling onshore in the Gippsland Basin, drilling onshore in the Otway Basin, or actually allowing fracking, especially offshore in the Gippsland area, where not only was the gas generated, it migrated and trapped. So Victoria's cooked its own goose, and I don't see that Australia or Queensland should actually bail them out.
Well, apparently you can't build a house in Victoria and facilitate any gas. You have to have electricity. They don't like you having gas appliances.
Well, therein lies another problem, that because brown coal is so evil, and when you burn it, it produces electricity at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about a tenth of what Victorians pay now.
Yeah.
Because of that, they're going to hit the wall.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that Victoria can actually keep itself going on sea breezes and sunbeams. So they've drunk the Kool-Aid, and they believe that the gas of life, carbon dioxide, actually warms the planet. Well, we've got thousands of millions of years of data to show that that's not the case.
Did you see the story about the dinosaur bone that they found in Antarctica?
Well, I'm not surprised. The Antarctic rocks were once connected to South America, to Australia, to South Africa and to India, and we find dinosaur bones there. We also have coal deposits in Antarctica. We also have very ancient rocks, which are quite uranium-rich. Yeah. We also have modern rocks forming, such as in West Antarctica. We've got 150 geothermal areas sitting underneath the West Antarctic ice sheet. So if the ice sheet melts a little bit, people say, it's global warming. You can't melt a sheet from the bottom with warmer air on top of it. And if you warm air from minus 20 to minus 10, it's still not going to melt the ice. And underneath, when we have geothermal activity and volcanic activity, as we see on Iceland, we get a melting of the ice sheet. Now, we find the same in Greenland. In Greenland, we've got an ice sheet that does melt at times, and that's because the ice sheet sits on rocks which are quite radioactive. And when you have a radioactive breakdown of potassium, uranium and thorium, you not only create new elements and give out radioactive particles, but you actually give out heat. And so there are many things we don't get told, and I think it's because many of the activists either don't know it or don't want to tell us what it is.
Well, the journalist was quite surprised that the dinosaurs would have been in Antarctica.
It's not hard to surprise an ignorant journalist. Oh, sorry, I used the tautology, ignorant journalist.
Well, the guy, I guess he was a geologist or an explorer or something or other, he said, no, 35 million years ago, it was a lush, green environment. It was more like South America. It was like a jungle. Now, you'd imagine that somebody would say to that, well, you mean Antarctica has changed so much in that time? Man's influence upon the environment back then would have been nothing?
Well, Antarctica and Australia pulled apart about 96 million years ago. Tasmania clung onto our coattails and we couldn't get rid of them. New Zealand pulled away also, and we have been able to get rid of them, push them out in the Pacific and give them their well-earned volcanoes and earthquakes. And South America pulled away a little bit later, and by the pulling away of South America, we set up a circumpolar current around Antarctica. So warm water from the tropics couldn't enter Antarctica, and we had a polar continent with no access to warm water, and it froze. Now, Antarctica geology is no different from that of southern Australia. The rocks that we find here in South Australia continue across into Antarctica. We can see great valleys of salt lakes in Western Australia, and when you join them back to Antarctica, these are glaciers. We see the dinosaur fossils, which we find around Phillip Island area in Victoria. The same rocks exist in Antarctica. So we've just broken apart continents. Now, that idea came out of a meteorologist in 1912, and that was the German Alfred Wegener. And Wegener argued on the basis of looking at ice, looking at old fossils, looking at, well, nothing else, a fossil has to be old, doesn't it? Looking at fossils, looking at glacial striations, and he used these down at Henley Beach and the ones down further south down the coast. Those striations are telling you which way the ice moves, and he was able to put up an idea that the continents were once joined and they've since pulled apart. Now, he was absolutely pilloried, especially during World War I, because he was German, and the second thing is that the ideas had no explanation. We didn't know a lot then, and he argued it was a rotational force that did it, but it wasn't. And so those ideas came up in 1912. Way ahead of his time, we resurrected those with returned soldiers who had been doing seaborne magnetics, looking for submarines, and they noticed that the ocean floor was striped and the magnetism reversed as you go further out from the centre of the ocean. You have one as normal magnetised, the next layer is reverse magnetised, and they were able to put together a story of continental drift, something that Wegener put together in 1912. Now, that's the story of science. You find that many lone warriors, many sceptics, are those who are pushed out on the ice, and Wegener died on the ice in Greenland, but pushed out on the ice and left there for decades, and then the idea is resurrected with new data or new thinking. And that, I think, is what's going to happen with a lot of this work in Antarctica, because that shows us that we've had multiple changes in climate, that Antarctica was once tropical, that Antarctica geologically is very similar to Patagonia and very similar to parts of Tasmania and parts of Victoria and South Australia and Western Australia and parts of the Cape Town area in South Africa. So it takes time often for ideas to change and to cement. Now, with climate change, the first time we've ever had an idea that's based on political propaganda. Yeah. Scientific ideas are based on fads and fashions and often fools, and these are cliques of scientists. You've only got to go to a conference and see there's that group there that are following that idea, there's this group here that are following that idea, and they compete, they pillory each other. That's the way science works. But we've never had science in the past deal with an idea for which there's no evidence, and secondly, for which the politics have been involved. Yeah, we've never had it with nuclear science. We've never had it with anything.
But there's real evidence that the world is changing, has always changed.
Well, always changed. I would be incredibly worried about the future of this planet if it didn't change. It is a dynamic planet, and the dynamic side of the planet is driven by the planet cooling down, and it's been cooling down for 4,500 million years. I will be worried in about 5 billion years' time because it'll stop cooling down.
Well, we don't have much to worry about.
Well, really. Some of us might be there. You never know. But I will be worried if this planet didn't change. Now, we've had different atmospheres in the planet. The first atmosphere was rich in hydrogen and helium. It didn't last very long. The second atmosphere, which was for the bulk of time, was a carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere, thousands of times richer than today's atmosphere. And that atmosphere existed until about 500 million years ago, when we had critters that started to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and put them into shells and limestone and into life. And we ended up with our third atmosphere, which is an oxygen-bearing atmosphere. And we are evolving, and you can see it with the decrease in carbon dioxide over the last 500 million years. We are dangerously low, and we are evolving into our fourth atmosphere, which will be a nitrogen-rich atmosphere, and basically only bacterial life will survive. So these changes are quite normal.
Yeah. There's a
sorry, Jeremy, if you don't mind. Interesting. I've heard from a colleague of mine quite some time ago. The explanation for global warming may be because of volcanism under, say, the Arctic Sea, so the upwelling of hot water has melted the ice, and so therefore you've got a thinning of the ice cap. You also have very unusual weather patterns starting to circulate in Europe, and apparently, according to the meteorologists, we have this super El Nino, which is going to make its presence felt this coming summer. What do you account for these sorts of changes from a geological perspective? I mean, we know what the meteorologists say, but what do you say?
Well, the first thing is you have high-quality friends because they are on the money. In the Arctic Sea, you've got a spreading centre where you're pulling apart the ocean called the Gakkel Ridge, and there we have submarine volcanoes. These submarine volcanoes are putting a huge amount of heat into the atmosphere. The volcanic rocks there, and we've measured them, have 13.5% by weight of carbon dioxide in the lava. That dissolves in basal seawater, and when that seawater eventually gets to the tropics and is upwelled, it degasses carbon dioxide. The second thing is that we have the oceans being pulled apart. This is one of Wegener's ideas. He fitted the continents back together again. They are being pulled apart. We have mid-ocean ridges. We've measured more than 3.4 million volcanoes in the Pacific Ocean. These volcanoes are leaking out carbon dioxide. The modern volcanoes are leaking out heat. Now, in the Pacific, when you have a volcanic eruption, you don't see it. But you can measure it with a small amount of earthquake activity. As you push apart rocks as the lava rises, you get breakage of rocks and earthquakes. And so we've been able to measure earthquake swarms, and that correlates very well with El Nino events.
Right.
Now, if you want an El Nino event, you need to heat seawater. How do you heat seawater? Well, that's to put many cubic kilometres of molten rock at 1,200 degrees Celsius into the sea, which is at 2 degrees Celsius. You obviously have to take heat from the lava into the sea. That warm water rises, and that gives you an equatorial El Nino effect. So there is a lot of work in volcanology which is suggesting, well, wait a minute, we're on a planet that's cooling down. This is part of the cooling process. 70% of the surface of the Earth are the oceans. So more than 70% of the Earth's heat that we lose goes into the oceans because the thin crust is in the oceans and the thick crust is on the continents. And but that's totally ignored by the climate people. It's totally ignored by the meteorologists because it doesn't fit the story. And the planet is losing heat and has been for a very long period of time. We see it under the ice in Antarctica and Greenland. We see it in the oceans. Now, I've seen various calculations, but I wouldn't hang my hat on any of them, but it's anything from 3% to 20% of the heat that we put into the atmosphere actually comes from volcanic activity beneath the oceans.
Professor, you said it doesn't fit the story. Who wrote the story?
Well, the story was written by a team of people who are into controlling you. I suspect a lot of the story came out of the Soviet Union or out of Russia and has continued. And the story is that you filthy capitalists are filling the atmosphere with a poisonous gas which is going to create a catastrophic climate change. Oh, by the way, we'll keep smelting and we'll keep pumping out carbon dioxide. And by the way, we'll keep selling you material such as wind turbines and solar panels. So I think it's been and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's a very, very good economic model to be able to make sure that your military opponent has higher costs through energy, and all your costs are related to energy. This piece of beautiful cake which I want to attack in front of me, you made that using energy. You grew the grain using energy. You grew the sugar for the icing using energy. So everything we do on this planet is related to energy. And so if you can weaken your opponent by having their energy costs sparse or very expensive, you are winning the long-term political battle. There's also an interior battle that goes on. If you can destroy the morale of your opponent, then any long-term political, social or moral battles become easier. And I think that's what's happened over the last 30 or 40 years. We've actually been attacked from within and from without, and we've got, to use the term, the useful idiots there who are following this. Now, we have a very large number of people with a self-interest, and these are in the climate institutes, and we have them in every university in the country. And these people are doing enormous amounts of research, generously funded by we, the taxpayer, and they are telling us that the planet is changing. Yeah. Well, we know that anyway.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
but
not...
you say it's cooling, and they say it's warming.
Well, it depends upon the time period you look at. If you look at the last 30 years, the planet has been warming. If you look at the last 4,000 years, the planet is cooling. It depends upon time. So if someone says, oh, this is the hottest summer ever, you've got to say, when?
Yeah. So it's wide open to manipulation.
Of course it is, because it was much hotter in medieval times. It was 5 degrees warmer than now. It was about 4 degrees warmer than now in the times of Jesus. It was about 4 degrees warmer in Minoan times, and between those we had times which were much colder.
Yeah.
And they were given the unusual names of the Little Ice Age because it was cold.
There was a fellow called Robert Lacey. We used to talk to him when I was at 5D, and he was a royal author. He did biographies of the royal family. Mm-hmm. And he had an interest in these matters. And he wrote a book. Caroline, do you remember Robert Lacey's book? What was it called? The World 1,000 Years Ago or something? Where he described...
Well, that's the time you would
the year 1000.
Yeah.
And he said that they were growing pineapples in England.
Yes.
And Australia was a rainforest. Oh. Australia was a rainforest.
Well, we have very good evidence for that. We have it from history. We have it from the harvests of grain. In that time in Europe, we had 2 grain harvests a year, and there was so much wealth generated that we spent that wealth building our great institutions like the monasteries and cathedrals and universities and magnificent churches. We have very good records. That was a warm period of time. Earlier than that, it was the Dark Ages when it was cold. Then we had the Roman times when it was warm. And we know that. The Romans kept very good records of their salt harvests, their grain harvests, and they were growing grapes up in northern England, in Yorkshire. Well, England does grow grapes, and they try to make wine, but you wouldn't feed it to a dying donkey. And they grew olives as far up the Rhine River as Bonn. It was much warmer, and we see it from the clothing they wore.
Well, what's going on in Europe now with this? They keep on saying this is the hottest day that we've ever had. It's 40 degrees or 41 degrees. It's a fairly warm day by Adelaide standards if we've got middle of summer or something. How would you pacify the people who are getting all hot and bothered?
I would say look at history. Go back and look in the medieval warming. There were periods of time when it was warmer than that. Go back and look at the proxies to give you the warmth in Greek and Roman times. It was much warmer than that. Go back in archaeological times, say 10,000 years, just after the Younger Dryas, we had which was from 12,500 to 11,700 years ago. We had a warming period, and that warming we had a 15 degrees Celsius temperature rise in 10 years. So if you want to worry about warming, you can't look at the temperature you measure today. You've got to look at that over time and see where it fits into the cycles. And we have cycles of warming and cycles of cooling, and most of them are related to how far we are away from the sun and how much energy the sun's putting out, which is variable. There are other factors, where the continents lie and what's happening in the galaxy. So you can't just look at a number alone and say, oh, my God, we'll all fry and die. Now, Europe's problem is that, and I've lived in Munich. It's very cold in Munich. The houses there are built to handle the cold. And they are not built to handle warm days. You have smaller windows. You can't get much air circulation. There's no such thing as an air conditioner. No. All you need to do is to go down to the Isar River and strip off and have a swim because it's warm, unseasonably warm, except it's summer when you get these spikes of warmth. Now, we've seen that even through the Little Ice Age. We had periods when it was very warm for short periods of time. So making a statement like that shows that you have no knowledge of history and you just don't know how science works.
Isabella Taylor has arrived. Isabella, and you brought your whole family.
Yes, I brought my mum and my grandparents. A lot of them are fans of your work, and people around the dining room table stay, so I thought they could come and have a listen.
That's wonderful. Everyone's welcome, and there's lots of cake and biscuits and everything. But
and I did a podcast a week ago.
What was the podcast about?
Ask the podcaster. He interviewed me.
Yes, so a couple of days ago, I think it was, I interviewed Professor Plimer on his views on climate change, which he's very eloquently laid out for you today, and what's happening in the world right now, and even some other areas like the data centres being introduced in Australia, and his thoughts on that, to take that to the audience on social media and YouTube.
Was this your Inspired By series?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Such an impressive young lady. How old are you now? Because we the first time you came on this show, I think you were 14?
I think,
or maybe younger.
I think I was 8, but I'm not
8.
sure. I know I interviewed you around that time. I'm 14 now, though, yes.
So you're 14 now? Mm-hmm. Well, you're very grown up for 14.
Oh, thank you.
Your mother and father are going to have to lock you up fairly soon, I would imagine. But in talking about education and where the kids of today are going and who's taking them there and what's going to be there when they get there, you seem to have broken the mould. You've come through the system, very intelligent, open-minded, clever. How do you get on at school? Do they like this sort of individuality?
I don't think any large group of people likes a form of individuality, because sometimes it's hard for them to grasp and how to accept that when it's not probably more normal to be the cookie cutter sort of design of child. Yeah. But I definitely just want to put this out there that if the best thing you can do for your kids is when you go to school, you have the standard curriculum, and compared to, say, from 50 years ago today, that has been incredibly, in blatant words, dumbed down to standard forms of education. When you can kind of see this because when I was in primary school, we had grouped classes where, there'd be the smarter group of kids, there was an average class, and there was a class for kids who were struggling. And that worked well for every single student because you were working with kids at your level and teachers that could support you. And then as soon as you get to high school, you get put into classes where you're with groups of people from all walks of life, and that's great. It's a great social experience. But my biggest tip for parents is if you want your child to get ahead in maths or science, you have to do things outside of school to help further that education. And just if your kids are passionate about something, don't block it because 50 years ago it was considered, dangerous to enter a career in the arts. But now with the way AI is going, if your kid has a spark for that, that might just be what makes them something that's not replaceable in the future. So if we can have the lack of fear to put ourselves out there, and that's what I try and do with the project, it can be something that makes our future a lot more interesting and less replaceable.
How many interviews have you done now over the years?
If I just say a rough number, about 40.
Yeah, right.
And it's changed a lot, and that's just with the way the audience is growing and the way the world is going. We used to religiously put 26-minute episodes out onto YouTube and Channel 41 in Melbourne and Channel 41 in Adelaide and Channel 31 in Melbourne. But as we've watched over time, people's attention spans have gotten shorter, so we're starting to put more of our energy into short bursts of the interviews onto social media. And we're finding that it's a very new market. It's very difficult to navigate, but it's turning out to being more successful.
But you can do a lot to shape it. It's very malleable at the moment. It's growing and nobody quite knows exactly what he or she is doing. It's a living, evolving thing, this social media. People are frightened of it, or people love it. People are addicted to it. It's a very interesting moment in communications. What was that one you sent me the other day? You were standing up there. It looked like you were in a competition.
Oh, I was at the national final for the Legacy Junior Public Speaking Award last November, where I came second, which was a fantastic experience. And I know
you didn't come first.
It had some very great speakers, and I have to say it was a very difficult decision for the judges. But I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to have participated in such an interesting competition where so many different ideas were spoken and listened to.
Yeah.
And I know, Jeremy, you're a ward of Legacy, so it's always great to talk about the competition with you. But this year, more recently, I helped MC the first round of it with the lovely Suzanne Moorhead, who's from Legacy. She helps host these events, and it's so great for young people to have this opportunity to develop these public speaking skills, and I'm going to be doing that again with the state final this August.
Do you pick a topic?
So you pick a topic based on the legacy ideals of mateship, personal sacrifice, voluntary service, the need for remembrance, and social justice. And then you can speak for 5 minutes on anything in and around those topics. You might choose one, you might choose 5. But the real determiner for these sorts of competitions is the impromptu speech, and you only get 5 minutes to prepare for that, and you only find out the topic 5 minutes before. And then you have to talk for 2 minutes about that topic that you've only had 5 minutes to prepare for.
And what's your technique? How do you handle it?
Yeah.
Read the headlines, read the newspapers, because the more individual and fresh your ideas can be, and how you can develop your individual thought. Most people, you get the topic social media. The first 5 people are going to go up there and they're going to talk about kids are destroyed by these addicting algorithms. And we've heard that. It's been cookie-cutted into everybody's brain from social media, the news, the newspapers. But maybe you can talk about, why are we banning social media when it's the algorithms that are a problem? And you propose, say, a model where they don't make algorithms so that, say, for gambling advertisements, they don't directly target people who are gambling addicts based off of what they've liked on social media. Social media knows you better than anyone in your whole family just after you liking 300 posts. And so they can target you with whatever ads they're paid to sell.
So you've trained yourself to be able to stand up and with a couple of minutes preparation, talk on any subject at all.
I would like to think so. Obviously, some would be
bloody clever,
easier than others based on like what you talk about at home.
I mean,
a lot.
you and the professor, when I look around this room, we've got Tony Denton, we've got John Bruni and Gary and Isabella and the professor on the other side of the table. Imagine the collective IQ of all you people. I mean, what a brains trust.
John.
Yeah. So it puts a great responsibility on you to do something incredible with your life. What do you want to do?
I definitely want to pursue a career in the media, whether that's, sharing my thoughts and ideas through songwriting, interviews, poetry, writing.
Well, you can do it all. You can do it all. You can take your pick.
I think that is the way it's going, and creative expression is definitely the way to go as a young person because, you go onto AI, it can solve any maths problem generally without mistakes in seconds. And while some people may find it rewarding to do that, we've got to start thinking of ways to take our passions into more humanly creative pursuits. We had a debate recently where we had to argue, my school had to argue at least, that government should do nothing to curb the impact that AI has on creative industries. And we won that debate by a significant margin because we fleshed out the point that AI cannot directly create anything by itself. The actual issue is copyright laws. And you can look at someone like Taylor Swift. She's copyrighted the Hey It's Taylor Swift line and her bodysuit with the guitar. And so now that intellectual property that was her creative idea has been copyrighted. And what we said, it's actually the copyright laws. AI can't create anything. Us humans can create anything just out of an experience, and AI can't do that.
Yeah. I wonder what you can't copyright. They tell me that Harley Davidson have the sound of their exhaust copyright. Weird.
Yeah, it would all be to do with, I guess, the type of fuel and how it reacts with what's inside the bike. But yeah, you do get into more interesting topics like that. But I think the fundamental thing is be open to what the future has. There's no point in resisting it because as one person, you cannot do anything to change what is going to happen. You can only, carve your own path that you're specifically venturing in.
We had a bloke on the air 2 or 3 weeks ago by the name of Professor Toby Walsh, who is professor at the University of New South Wales. Do you know him?
I podcasted with him, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's great.
Fascinating fellow.
He is.
And his specialty is AI. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about it being the wild, untamed, loose cannon, to mix my metaphors, that most people think it could be, if it isn't. Professor?
My concern with AI is we've first got to have intelligence in society before we can think about AI.
Well, how we do that seems like a larger task.
Well, I think we're seeing it here today. I mean, we have your family are here, and I'm sure that one of the reasons, and we were discussing this off air before you came in, one of the reasons that you're so articulate and a critical thinker is the support that you've had from your family and the way your family and you sit around the kitchen table and discuss matters. And you were talking about John arguing with your grandfather.
All the time.
This
But it was
is
great.
really important. Really important to have that foundation to be a critical thinker. It's not criticising anyone in your family. It's actually using your brain.
Critical thinking. Do they teach it, or are you born with it?
They try to teach it at schools. It's actually one of the new sort of ventures they have with subjects. We had a class in 7th grade called Student Agency, and it was where you could pursue anything for the time you had that class, but you had to learn something out of it. And that's commonly echoed in the Year 11 and Year 10 EIF and AIF. But I think it really comes from meeting lots of people, observing and experiencing your own situations and learning how to come to conclusions and analyse something from multiple perspectives rather than being emotionally embroiled in it.
Now, you go to Seymour, don't you?
Yes, I do.
That's just around the corner.
Yes, it is. I was driving past it during my holidays, which I wasn't too jazzed about.
Oh, well. How many more years have you got?
I have 3 and a bit more years, which is crazy to say because it feels just like yesterday that I was still in primary school. But yeah, it's gone very quickly.
Yeah, it must mean you're having fun. Do you find it easy or challenging?
It depends what aspect. When I take a class called entrepreneurship where we do business, and I find that quite simple.
How do you teach entrepreneurship?
I don't think you can. They try to. And I find it, I really enjoy it as a class because it's my whole family's like life. We've been in business for many, many years. And so it's interesting to see how their version of teaching it. It's all very, studying and like understanding the flywheel effect and the 4 Ps of advertising. And while that is important, the best way, in my opinion, to study entrepreneurship is to just go out there and start a business.
What are the 4 Ps of advertising?
Product, place, promotion, and something else.
Yeah.
That was last semester. I've been on 3 weeks of holidays and I've gotten a bit slack. But
well, you've got to go put yourself into neutral just to recharge the batteries.
And then we also learnt about the difference between point of difference and competitive advantage, and how you've got to understand both to create a successful business. But one thing I find really interesting at school, and I know Professor Plimer will be able to understand this, is whenever the topic of climate change is brought up, or any topic really that has a political standing, and obviously climate change shouldn't have a political standing because it's a science and not...
No, it's a religion.
It
They've
is.
turned it into
very
a religion.
much is, because whenever you say, well, it's normal for the climate to change. I started saying this one time and I was actually incredibly ostracized by a student that said, but no, it's being sped up way more than it should be for the time that it's experiencing. I'm like, well, how can you predict that?
And how can you prove it?
There's no statistics ever mentioned when they talk about climate change. And one thing that our teacher said directly after this is my history teacher. He's a great teacher. He said, my job isn't to influence what opinions you have, but it's to present you with all the facts and help you come to your own decisions. And I think we need more teachers like that, because school is a place for education, but it's not a place for indoctrination. They're taking advantage of the 7 hours they have of a day with young families. And I come home and I say things to my mum. And one of those things was, when you talk about time and you say AD and BC, it's now changed to BCE, so before Common Era. And
why?
Because not everyone's religious, and why is it fair to talk about time if it's religiously based? And I come home and I really try and justify this to my mum.
Now, you go to a private school.
Yes.
Private school is better?
It depends on what you're talking about. I would say some things don't change and some things do.
Okay.
And the students don't change. There's always going to be, social tensions. But I think what I find is I really enjoy going to an all-girls school. You don't have a distraction of boys, I guess, and you have time to, explore your interests without judgment. But there's always going to be judgment anyway. There's just slightly less of it.
Okay, and you're an only child.
Yes.
Do you think that makes a difference?
Yes.
I think it does, but I think,
Does that mean you're precocious, John?
Just going on my background, I have to say I used to love engaging with other adults. I'm sure you find the same thing.
Yeah, well, you grow up.
Your own peer group is a little alien from you, but the people who are older than you, your parents' age, your grandparents' age,
you enjoy interacting with.
I mean, that's been my journey for my whole life. I enjoy the company of older people.
I can totally relate to that. My mum works in retirement. She sells the units down at a retirement village. Yes. And I love spending time with the people that come through there. I love talking to them. And I don't find it's almost like a language barrier. We both speak English, but you never see older people and younger people talking together. And I think one of the things about being an only child is I've been raised in an environment where I've been talking to primarily people over 30, and it's been one of the best experiences. And even with the Inspired by TV show and podcast, being able to talk to people like Professor Plimer has been so enlightening for me, and I don't think that I would be the same person without those experiences.
Well, I was one of 3, highly competitive. When I had a younger brother who went at primary school to a selective school for the ultra bright. I had an older sister who was the firstborn, and so she was a bit spoilt. It was competitive, and it was competitive all through school and all through university. And the bottom line is I won. and there is nothing wrong with having competition.
And there's nothing better than winning.
It gives you a sweet taste. So I think being a sibling with others in a highly competitive environment really did help my life. I also had the wonderful situation of some very good mentors, both at school and at university, and got in with the right crowd as a young person. So it wasn't a case of luck, it was a case of actually consciously being forced to compete, be it in sport or be it in academic studies. Everything was competitive.
But actually, just touching on that, as an only child, and I'm sure you find the same thing, being among older people makes you want to lift your game. You're never like, oh, well, I'm just watching some fluff on TV and talking about weird stuff, like to your peers. You're engaging more mature people, which forces you into a more mature form of speech and a more mature form of engagement, which I think is the thing that, not without, dissing the competition, the interfamily competition, but I think that it's a sort of competition in a sense, because if you're the only young person in the room and you can hold your own against far older, smarter people who have lived their life, that's a talent in itself. And it is also driven by a sense of competition because you want to be like them.
Why don't you guys all get together and write a wonderful book on how to bring up children and how
From the perspectives of all
a
generations.
formula. Yeah, it was something nice and simple and straightforward that we ordinary people can follow.
Yeah, that's right. 3 generations this year. Yep.
By the way, at your school, did they do this silly welcome to country and have 3 flags and all that crap?
Yes. I don't want to say too much about that personally.
I do.
Just I'll let the other gentlemen have their opinions on that.
All right, well, think about that for a second. Let me expand the group. I put a call into Neil Genman, who's very kindly sent me his new book with 3 elastic bands around it. I'm not sure. I'll take
He doesn't want you to read that book.
Well, it's about real estate. And I think at this particular time in our history and our development, you couldn't find a more important subject. Well, depending on where you are in the home situation, I saw that the Hutt Street Centre for the homeless has had its requirements or its facilities in demand, and it's gone up something like 34% in the last 12 months, where people just have no home. And we see today that the rents around Australia are through the roof. All sorts of interesting things are happening. We won't get into perhaps we will get into how to avoid or maybe go back to a better arrangement. Neil, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Jeremy. Yes, I am.
Wonderful to talk to you. How to Avoid Costly Mistakes is the subtitle of your book, and sell your home for more. So this is because you've written both sides of the dilemma.
Equation.
Yeah, both sides of the equation, the buying and the selling. I'm not sure which I would like to be on at the moment. It's all very confusing. Do you see a way through this?
Yeah, well, I do. And the most important thing is to just do a little bit of research before you go out there into the market. I would say, without exaggerating whatsoever, that 95% of people do not get the best result when they buy or sell real estate. When they're buying, they often pay more than they should. And when they're selling, almost 100% of sellers are getting ripped off these days because of the uniquely Australian scam called VPA, which stands for Vendor Pays Advertising. And honestly, Jeremy, it is just sickening.
But hasn't that always been the case, that the vendor, they say, here is your advertising budget?
No. Do you know, there's 195 countries in the world, and Australia is the only country where sellers are asked to pay advertising money in advance of their homes being sold. So if their homes don't sell, let's say an elderly widow decides she wants to sell her home because she wants to help out her children and her grandchildren get a foot into the market, which is hard for first home buyers these days. So the agent comes out and says, I think I can get you $2 million. So the lady says, that's wonderful. Well, at that rate, I can help all my grandchildren, I can help everybody, and I can buy a place for myself. Everything will be wonderful. So she puts the house on the market and then finds out afterwards that, I can only get $1.5 million. Okay, no, thank you, I won't sell. But then she's got a bill for $10,000 for advertising. And if she doesn't pay it, some agents can, and there's another company now that use this pay later scheme, can put a caveat on her home so she can never sell it to anybody. And unless she pays that $10,000, it's monumentally unfair. I mean, if there was one thing I could have a wish right away to ban is make it that make it just the way it should be in all the other countries in the world, where people do not have to pay anything until such times as their homes are sold. And people, what is my house really fair enough? Shouldn't I pay for the advertising? Excuse me. Everybody knows within the real estate industry, Jeremy. And remember, I've worked in the real estate industry all my life, and I'm old now, just like you and I are both old. Okay, so
I refuse not only to get old, I refuse to grow up.
Well, I tell you what, just to tell you, Clint Eastwood's 96 or something. 95,
yeah.
I love what he said. Just to tell you, I love what he said. He said, "I refuse to let the old man in."
Yes. In fact, I think he wrote a song. It came from a movie called Mule, I think, and it was a song, well-received song called "Don't Let the Old Man In." That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, around this table, I've got Professor Ian Plimer and Isabel Taylor, who is 14.
Yes.
14
years old and as smart as a whip. And Tony's just walked out of the room, and Dr. John Bruni has gone for a cup of coffee or something. So we've all got a certain experience in